Yeah, and it's so much more nuanced. There's so many layers. There's just more to it. We can't just
Yeah,
be.
I can't. Yeah, it's so much more nuanced. Disadvantage in life is complex. It is. It
Yeah,
cannot. For each person, it's going to be different. The things that disadvantage me, whether or not I am disabled or I'm not disabled, but whether or not I am this or that or whatever, you're not going to be able to tell what is my, what are the things that most disadvantage me.
exactly, because there are certain um I have a lot of black friends,
Mhm,
and to some of them, they have experienced some really shitty, like, racist events or
mhm,
in their life. And
mhm,
then some of them haven't experienced maybe but one or two small things.
mhm,
So you can't, so for what one person has been,
mhm.
something that they
And
have
it
struggled
might
with
be,
a lot.
like they also include trauma, like rape and stuff like this. Like you're not going to be able to tell the impact of this or that. It might be what disadvantage you most might be that you had a mother who was on drugs, right? Who knows? Like this is not
That's a
something.
big one. That's a
Yeah,
big one.
this
Absolutely.
might
And you
be
will never see that. You will never, from looking at a person, you will never know, oh, their mother was on drugs and was like abandoning or neglectful.
right.
You can never tell from looking at a person. And that's probably one of the worst things that can happen to somebody
Hmm.
is to have a neglectful
Exactly. And in
um
our society today, one of the worst, I mean, not just in our society, but let's say globally in our world, quite a big disadvantage would be wealth. Um, what can we do about that? What are we going to do? Yes, I agree that we can look at these things, but I'm just saying it is not so easy to deal with these problems and just going around in groups and saying you talk first, you have more importance, you're the ultimate victim because you this is just no, it
and
doesn't.
then you can, if you let it define you, then how will you ever overcome it? You know, if it becomes your identity, then you're
But
never
I think
allowed to
even
change your
I
identity.
think it becomes more of your identity when that happens, when people focus on it and
Exactly.
thing, it becomes more.
Exactly.
Because yeah, I feel like you can be a black person and just be okay with being black and that's it. I mean, I have experienced racism in my life a few times. Today I actually I was speaking to some people and we spoke about that. So I recall the times when I've experienced racism. Yeah, but I don't think it needs to define you. I think it's just a thing. It just as sometimes it depends. I mean, it depends on how you experience things or whatever. Maybe for some people it would be a big problem, but for others it wouldn't. You know,
Yeah, there's a
it depends
woman.
on
Oh,
when
what
it
is her
happens, I
name?
guess, or how it happens, or I don't know.
Yeah,
You know,
there's a woman, and I cannot remember her name right now, but she wrote a book, and she's talking about a lot about all these different groups of people who have been through all kinds of trauma.
hmm,
And what the studies are showing is that just because you had the trauma, one example was like child abuse,
right.
that was less a predictor of the outcome as to how the person thought about what they went through and how they
Right.
dealt with it, and
Yeah.
whether they decided it became part of who they are. Oh, I'm
Right.
a victim of child abuse,
Yes.
and carry
I
that their whole
that's what
life.
I think as well. Because I mean, I was gonna say something about sexual assault, but I felt bad. I mean, sexual assault is awful, terrible, bad, but it it is going to affect different people in different ways, and although it's terrible and bad, and we have to deal with it, and you need therapy, and all these things have to happen. I agree, right? But when you enter a group of people that tells you you being raped is I'm going to reward you by calling you a victim and letting you
Hmm.
speak and giving you privileges above other people just because you have had the disadvantage of being raped, then that trauma becomes a bigger part of you than it was. And I
That's what
am
the.
not sure
Hmm.
it needs to be. And it's similar with race. I am not sure that race needs to be as big a part of somebody as people
As we're
make it
making
out
it,
to
and
be.
yeah,
It doesn't need to be that big a part of somebody. And sexual abuse, it will always be a part of you. I understand this, da, da, da. But you don't need to like focus on it so much and like be in groups, but you do in a constructive way, maybe with a therapist alone, in in this
Yeah,
way, but not in this public way of, oh my gosh, this makes me a victim and
and
therefore I
on and on
deserve.
and on.
Yeah.
That's what I was the same lady I was just talking about. She one of the studies she mentioned was they studied people who went to like cancer survivor groups and sexual assault survivor groups and a couple other ones I don't remember. But the people who went to the groups, um, on average, were worse off. They were more depressed. They
Yeah.
were, because they had continued to dwell in that
Focus
instead
on
of
it.
kind
Yeah.
of trying to move on from it.
Right. And I
I
think
mean,
really happening with race, I can think, because I think race can be just it can be something very small. Yes, yes, society might sometimes discriminate against you, but half the time you're not even going to know. How are you going to know if somebody's discriminating against you? You're not going to know.
right.
So it may not even affect your world. Just
I
but
agree.
focusing on it so much, and like this sort of weird cult groups things that I have seen, weird. Weird. I've made an entire video, another video detailing that I understand that there is a counter argument to this entire intersectionality thing. So please do not judge what you've heard in this video as my entire opinion. These opinions are real, but I understand the counter argument, and I understand that marginalized groups have it very difficult and so on as well. It is nuanced. There are two sides of this intersectionality argument, and I do understand the struggle that minority groups face, including Black people, including um, racial minorities, and of course, all types of marginal groups, disabled, LGBTQ, and so on and so on.